welcome to the video. Today we are talking about this phone right here, the OnePlus 10 Pro. This particular device has already had a little bit of an interesting release history. It dropped 3 to 4 months ago, back in January, but it was only released in China for whatever interesting reason. And then about 2 to 3 months later, late March, early April, we finally got the release here in the United States. So I have been using this phone for the better part of, how long has it been? Like 1 month now? For the better part of 1 month now. It is the classic, actually it's a good mix of the classic OnePlus formula that we've come to know and love, but also throwing in some new bits of flavor in there to kind of keep the phone a little spicy. So let's talk about it. This is the OnePlus 10 Pro. Right away, I just want to say that I really enjoy the OnePlus 10 Pro as a whole. It's a great smartphone, and it's one of those phones where I can't really look at it and try to break down one specific component of it that I could point to and say, that is the definitive weakness of this smartphone. So in other words, it checks the boxes for what you want a flagship phone to do, and it just performs really well in every statistical category for a smartphone. But on the flip side of that coin, if you were to look at the individual components of the 10 Pro, it is now competing in such an ultra competitive Android flagship smartphone space that at this price point, $899, you could probably take individual components of this phone and find comparable, if not better aspects in other Android phones on the market right around this same price point. So there is a decent amount going on with this phone, but I want to focus on what I really enjoyed. And we might as well start up front with the display because this is a fantastic smartphone display. It is really similar to last year's OnePlus 9 Pro, but that's not a bad thing because that was a top tier display as well. So 6.7 inches, 1440p resolution, it's AMOLED, it looks great, 120 hertz refresh rate, it's got the built-in super fast, super accurate optical fingerprint sensor, which by the way, is back in its rightful position this year. If you guys remember last year on the 9 Pro, OnePlus had moved it down towards like the bottom of the display. They bumped it back up to the correct position this year. So props to OnePlus for listening to that feedback from last year. And OnePlus has also mentioned that they've done some color calibration to this display. So your color accuracy should be much better across the whole brightness spectrum, just much better all around. Now that's obviously just a claim from OnePlus. I think the display looks fantastic overall, and I also think OnePlus does a great job of optimizing their software to work really well with the 120 hertz refresh rate. So everything you do on this phone is just super buttery smooth and feels really great. So display is fantastic. I know this is probably a controversial one, but I really like the way the OnePlus 10 Pro is designed, especially, and I know this is gonna really ruffle some feathers in the comment section, I especially love the way the back of the phone is designed. So stick with me here because we have a bit to talk about. And in case some of you out there are wondering, the front of the phone is Gorilla Glass Victus, the back of the phone is Gorilla Glass 5. Now, in terms of the design of the back, it's really grown on me. When the OnePlus 10 Pro first started leaking online and I saw the way the back was designed, I was like, oh no, OnePlus, what the heck are we doing here with this design? I've been using it for a month and I gotta say, I like it a lot, like more so than any other Android flagship phone that I have, the Pixel 6 Pro, the S22 Ultra. I dig it. Now, it definitely does have some Samsung-esque vibes going on in terms of the way that the camera module blends in with the enclosure, but I think the similarities really stop there because last year's S21 Ultra was just this kind of like behemoth unit that blended into the enclosure. This right here, in my opinion, looks really seamless. It looks streamlined, and it also looks like a kitchen appliance. This looks like a stovetop. You could probably cook a pot of mac and cheese on this, but again, it just kind of grows on you. I like it. And I like the spin of uniqueness that OnePlus brought to it. Now, in terms of the sandstone finish on the back, it has a nice mix of classic OnePlus vibes where you get that sandstone look, but you don't get that sandstone feel. It's soft touch matte finish, so it does a really good job of also not picking up fingerprints while also looking super unique, and hopefully the little bit of a sandstone speckle comes across on camera. Now, the one part of this phone that will pick up fingerprints is going to be that camera module, because that is glass, and let me tell you, you will touch that thing often and your fingerprints are going to be all over it. So just keep that in mind. But from a design perspective, I am digging the OnePlus 10 Pro, especially in this volcanic black. It looks sick. Historically, one area of OnePlus phones that I've never ever worried about was performance, and that trend holds true with the 10 Pro. And we've got a great job of OnePlus optimizing their software, which they have been doing a great job of for the past couple of years now, and also pairing that with top of the line hardware. Now, there are some things that I do want to talk about, mainly the fact that in the United States, we only get one hardware configuration with the 10 Pro. You got the Snapdragon 8 Gen 1, which is powering all the flagship Android phones for 2022, so that's great to see. But in terms of storage and RAM, you get one option, 128 gigs, which I think is kind of getting tough, especially for folks out there that might want to buy a phone. Let's say companies like Samsung are offering 512 to 1 terabyte in terms of storage now for their phones, and 8 gigs of RAM, which is good, but again, the competition is offering 12 gigs, especially at this price point. So it would have been good to see 12 gigs on this phone, but there is an option in the settings for you to go in and dedicate some of your storage as RAM, and I have that option turned on. So if you look in the settings, it now says 8 gigs plus an additional 5, which is the max that you can pull from your internal storage. Not sure how much of a bump that's going to add to performance, because quite honestly, performance on the 10 Pro has been excellent. Anything from mobile 3D gaming to just doing regular things like browsing the web is a fantastic experience on this device. And I will say, OnePlus also touted that they've added some good cooling measures to this device, and I think it's pretty well known at this point that the Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 runs a little warm. I will say that doing something like 3D gaming on the 10 Pro did feel, in terms of the phone's temperature, a little cooler compared to something like my S22 Ultra. So I think whatever OnePlus did in terms of keeping the device cool is actually working on this device. So yeah, performance is fantastic. In terms of software, there is some interesting stuff going on with Oxygen OS, which it is going to remain Oxygen OS here in the United States, so that's good to see. But if you're someone who has historically used a lot of OnePlus phones, you might find yourself not so at home once you initially set this device up, because that's how I felt. And I've used every OnePlus phone since like the 5 going forward. This was the first OnePlus phone in years that I've like got to the home screen after setup and I'm like, oh, this feels kind of weird. So it is great software still. It will just take you a little bit of time to adjust it to get to the point that you're going to be happy with it. But if you remain open-minded, I think you're going to really enjoy the software experience that is built on top of Android 12 here. And of course, powering the whole show is a 5,000 milliamp hour battery, which I got great battery life with, anywhere from 6 to 7+ hours of screen on time on a single charge. And that's with a lot of the settings turned on that typically reduce battery, like maximum display resolution and consistently keeping 120 hertz. But in terms of battery, the real star of the show here is going to be the charger, which OnePlus includes in the box. So props to OnePlus on that. But there is a 65-watt charging brick in the box and a USB-C to USB-C cable that'll take this phone from 0 to 100% in about 35 minutes. So let's say you really do need to charge this phone. You plug it in, I don't know, go do something, make some food, go take a shower or something. Your phone is going to have a ton of battery life left. And I think OnePlus even advertises like a day's worth of use in 15 minutes. So yeah, battery's great, charging is even better, and performance is fantastic. The 10 Pro also marks the second year of Hasselblad providing tuning for the OnePlus smartphone camera experience. Now, the actual camera module itself, and in terms of camera hardware, is really similar to last year's 9 Pro in that you have a 48 megapixel wide angle, you have a 8 megapixel telephoto, and you have a 50 megapixel ultra wide angle. Now, the one difference with the 50 megapixel ultra wide this year compared to last year is that there's now a 150 degree field of view mode. I believe OnePlus is calling it fisheye. So if you're into camera gimmicky type things, then fisheye mode might be right up your alley. I'm not creative enough to make fisheye actually look cool or generate any cool shots from it, but this camera experience is going to perform similarly to last year's OnePlus 9 Pro, and again, that's just not a bad thing. Last year's 9 Pro performed really well, and the 10 Pro also performs really well from a camera experience. It can definitely hold its own against a lot of other flagship smartphones out there, and if you are someone who is more into professional photography, I'm not creative enough or even good enough when it comes to photography or post-photo editing for things like that. There is a pro camera experience, so it's nice to see that OnePlus added that. It's called Hasselblad Pro, and you have the option to take photos in RAW and RAW Plus. Think of RAW Plus as a great balance of hardware and software in that you get the photo in 12-bit RAW, but OnePlus also adds some of their computational photography on top of that even before you go into photo editing. So from a camera experience, second gen Hasselblad system, not bad. So yeah, the OnePlus 10 Pro is a fantastic phone, and like I said, I've been using it for the better part of a month now, and yeah, I really enjoy using it on a day-to-day basis, but the one thing that keeps coming back to my mind is that this is a fantastic phone at the end of the day, but I'm just curious as to what OnePlus is trying to do with it exactly, because there were definitely some weird parts about the phone itself, the way it was launched, just a lot of stuff going on here that makes me wonder, like, what is OnePlus trying to accomplish? Are we trying to continue to cater to more of a niche diehard fan base, which OnePlus has obviously one of the best fan bases in terms of just loyalty and commitment to the brand itself? Or are we trying to achieve that Samsung level of mass production, appealing to the masses all around the world, and really trying to get this phone in as many hands as possible? Because from a carrier perspective, the OnePlus 10 Pro is only available if you were to walk into like a T-Mobile store. If you're not a T-Mobile customer, then really the only way to get this phone here in the United States is to buy it unlocked, which again just kind of looks strange given that this is a flagship phone and it's going to be competing against giants like Google and Samsung, which have carrier partnerships across the board. I think even when the 10 Pro initially launched, it wasn't working with Verizon 5G, although that has been taken care of. And it still, from my understanding, doesn't work with AT&T's 5G. So let's say you buy this phone unlocked and you have an AT&T SIM card, you're looking at 4G max network speeds, which is just strange. And OnePlus is also doing this thing again where if you buy the phone unlocked, there's no official IP rating. But if you buy the phone from T-Mobile, there is an official IP68 water and dust resistance rating, but there's no hardware build difference. So I'm not really sure what's going on there. Last year's 9 Pro just had the IP rating regardless of which route you went. I don't think we've seen something like this since the 8 Pro. We mentioned at the beginning of the video that there was like a 2 to 3 month discrepancy in terms of launching just exclusively in China for a little bit and then launching here in the States. Even when it got here to the States, we got 65 watt charging instead of 80 watt that's available internationally. The models in China are available in 3 colors, white, black, green. Here in the States, we got 2 colors, black and green. And in terms of configuration options, again, here in the States, we got one option, 8 gigs of RAM, 128 gigs of storage for $899. And OnePlus said that the 12 gig 256 will be coming at a later date. But I think the majority of the people that are probably going to buy this phone are probably not going to wait for that later date. So I don't know. There's a lot going on. This is a fantastic phone, and at the end of the day, if you were someone on the market for an Android smartphone and you have a preference towards OnePlus, you buy this, you're not going to be disappointed. Hopefully you have something to trade in to save some money on this. But again, this phone's also competing in an ultra aggressive segment right now. It's the same price as the Pixel 6 Pro, which depending on where you lie from a software experience, you might prefer the Pixel experience. And in terms of camera, the Pixel 6 Pro has a super solid camera setup too. $100 more gets you a phone like the S22 Plus, which is fantastic. $300 more gets you a phone like the Ultra, which I would say is the absolute pinnacle in terms of Android smartphones right now. But where I got to give Samsung some credit is that they usually have ultra aggressive trade-in options compared to a company like OnePlus. So I don't know. It's the type of smartphone that if you are a OnePlus user, like myself, who really enjoys OnePlus phones, you're going to really enjoy this phone. But it's got some really strong competition out there. And I don't know. There are just some questionable decisions made with the United States launch that make me wonder just what OnePlus is trying to accomplish with such a great smartphone. But hey, if you have any insight, let me know in the comment section down below. If you enjoyed the review, make sure you hit like and subscribe as always. Share the video with your friends if they're interested in OnePlus phones or Android phones. And as always, thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace.